having in this life, you need to work hard for it. Anything worth having. So, less convenience. I can sit at home and sleep all day and not get paid at the end of 2 weeks. That is convenience. Or I can work very hard and get paid in 2 weeks. The same way, you can just walk into any grocery shop and pick a $6 rotisserie chicken and then get that and have a higher level of like all the things that we're talking about. Or you can go get some beans and go through the hassle of preparing all of that and getting a good meal. It's all about the convenience that has been taught. Now, you just have to a click of some few buttons on your phone and something get delivered on your doorstep where you don't have to lift a finger. So our level of even physical activities, that also goes on to help in the whole digestion, even with the microbiome and everything, is that it is not the peristalsis actions that we need, the muscles and other things to move, is not even working because we are not even moving, we're not doing anything. So not only even the food preparation helps, but it also helps up to a level of physical activity, even in the preparation. Health is hard work. Let's establish that. Health is hard work. There's no cutting corners on that. So if you want good health, you should be ready to pay the price for it. But I can guarantee you, it's a good return on investment. It's a good investment. Nice. So if you have to pay that extra dollar or have to do that extra hard work to get your health, in terms of all the things that we talked about, including buying the vegetables instead of getting the convenience, I'll tell you the return on investment is so high, your body will thank you for it.
So I think it'd be good just for me to piggyback on that. You know, I don't know if it would be hard. It's just a new language you need to learn. You know what I mean? For physical activity, you can do, like someone was saying this morning, 30 minutes a day, a nice walk. You will get the benefits. If you hit 150 minutes a week of a nice walk, you'll start reaping the health benefits. Your mortality rates will be 30% lower over 5 years. You'll be more alert later into life. So, but it's more of a discipline in being, you know what I mean, and getting the knowledge. A lot of what we call health knowledge is advertisements on by the egg industry, the beef industry, the dairy industry, and you get some people that have wandered off, and even doctors that are drinking olive oil online out of the bottle, like, you know what I mean? A little bit is good, let me have some more, you know? There's a lot of noise out there, so you have to watch out. Some of us in this lifestyle medicine field are certified by the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. So anyone that carries that, you know, certification, chances are it's going to be reliable. I have a list of links on my website that are, I think they've all been vetted. I think that's the right word. So just know where you're getting your knowledge from. You can't just go on Facebook and soak up whatever you see there, because there's a lot of people that have wandered off of the track. They're selling things or whatever. I think we have to say a few words about plant-based meats. And basically, the gold standard, by the way, we don't say vegetarian anymore, or we try to use the word whole food plant-based, okay? WFPBD, something like that, whole food plant-based diet. The reason being is that when you use the word like vegetarian and so forth, it implies all kind of social beliefs and so forth, which may be very good, but if we're talking about nutrition, it's a whole food plant-based diet. That's your gold standard. Now, do you want to talk about plant-based meats at all? Because that's...
well, let's tie that in. Actually, Dr. Prince, go first.
You know, just a very small addition when it comes to the physical activity. You know, there is this standard of 30 minutes of walk. However, we know that if you have a hobby that you enjoy, or even a sport that you enjoy, you are more, this is research proven, you are more likely to stick to it and gain a benefit from it as well, as much as something that you don't enjoy doing. So I enjoy gardening, and unfortunately I can be out there the whole day doing that and I don't feel tired. And so, of course you have to have balance. No, don't do that. But I can do that. I can lift the stones. I can lift the gravel, and I feel excited doing that because I also like the end product. You may have something else that you like to do, playing something, pickleball, something with somebody. If you have something that is a physical activity that you enjoy, you are more likely to stick to it than something that you don't enjoy.
Okay, we're going to do a couple more about food, and then we'll move into the connectedness because there's several questions about that as well. One question, basically summarizing it, is it better if you buy the more expensive animal products like the organic or the pasture-raised, or is those safer to eat? Do those have less negative effects?
It's still an animal. It's in a nice package, but still. No, seriously. At the end of the day, yes, you maybe have less hormones, antibiotics possibly, but it's still a duck. You know what I mean? You know, it's, yeah, if I have to choose, I'll choose that one. You get a mental picture of these cage-free chickens, like they're roaming the fields, soaking up and swimming in streams, and they're better than when they're crammed into cages, but it ain't what you're picturing. You know what I mean? These cage-free, you know what I mean? So, the farm where old MacDonald had a farm and the animals were just roaming away, and we'll bring one in now. This is high-volume stuff. I mean, there are family farms, don't get me wrong, but that's probably not where you're getting your rotisserie chicken from. You know what I mean? You know.
So maybe if I'm racing my chickens, maybe a little bit better.
There we go. No, you know what? I was kidding, but yes, that
No,
would
but
be
yes.
true. If you so desire, if you can do that, you're not going to be juicing them up with antibiotics and that they're not supposed to be getting and so forth. So,
Then let's do one more for the food.
I would just add one thing. So let me talk about practically speaking as a practicing physician as well. When I get this, how do I, and this is just me, how do I approach it? Now, selling whole food plant-based diet to someone who has never heard of it in San Antonio may not always work in the beginning. So one thing that I share with my patients that I would like to share with you is that, like, start gradually. What can that look like as well? Some people can go, so I talk about the quantity. Start with quantity. If you were eating this much, maybe you can cut it into two. Start with that. Or if you were doing it every day, how about skipping Tuesday, Thursday, and start with that, and then gradually do that. And some people may never even, but then they will gradually are eliminating as well. Some people will be able to do it right away, but again, look at where people are and see where you can also meet them. Yeah.
So in our internal research that we keep from our patients, we just challenge them to pick one nutritional change per month. And guess what? Plenty of it fails, but between 40 and 60% sticks. So after a year, they've been able to make 40 to 60% improvement, right? So just pick one, try one change for a month, next month comes in, try something else, and that's okay. Not all of them you're gonna be able to stick with, but some you will, and now you'll carry that habit throughout the year.
So from mental behavioral perspective, how long does it take to change the habit, change the taste? What can we expect?
So in a vacuum, it's those 20 repetitions, those 20 days in a vacuum. However, we have to take into account pre-existing learned behaviors, so that establishes pathways that need to be unlearned. And so if there's a behavior that's been, established for 20 years, just you can imagine how that pathway is so strong. So any new behavior needs the same type of effort, work, reinforcement to be at the same level so that when it becomes a choice, it's equally as easy to pick one or the other. And this is where it's case by case, and it can take quite a bit beyond the 20 days of, you repeat something and the 21st day, you got it.
Mm-hmm. And to add to that, that is where the aspect of what we call graded exposure is so critical. So the graded exposure is that you gradually expose yourself to the new input that you're actually bringing in. Because sometimes the reason people also fall off is because the body sees that as a threat. as a nauseous threat. So if you're putting it in, they've gotten used to taking maybe 10 Coke bottles a day, and all of a sudden they've gotten used to that, and now you just take all of that away, the body is like, no, that's not how we've been dealing with ourselves here. So now you get a pushback from the system because now you're seeing that they're being under threat. So you're just going to get all those nauseous response. That's how people get the withdrawal symptoms, and it happens even with food. So that is why sometimes that graded exposure is so critical that sometimes I even tell even my patients some of these things. I go with 90-10, like you mentioned. Just 10% of what you regularly do, just change just 10% of it. Most times it's not even noticeable. But as you go further into this, because of the learn patterns, like you mentioned, it takes a little bit of time. But I always use I think last year I mentioned it, that I would prefer somebody who take one step an hour than somebody who does nothing. Because that one step an hour, in 24 hours, they might have taken 24 steps towards the right direction. And the power of compound effect or the cumulative effect, a year, 2 years, 3 years, 10 years down the line, where would they be? So those times, that is the thing. So sometimes, as far as we do these things, sometimes there's always the edge to go in all out. And then people get withdraw symptoms, and then they go back to the old pattern. Yeah. So it's always to have what we call the graded exposure, where you're gradually weaning yourself into it whilst you change the old patterns.
Okay, quickly. None of us are perfect, even us sitting up here, okay? Sorry. If
Speak
you fall
for yourself,
down,
sir.
you get
Speak
up.
for yourself.
When you fall, just like your walk with God, when you fall down, you get up. You don't give up on church, right? You get up, you dust yourself off, and you go on. So don't be too hard on yourself. The other is, if possible, if you're not the only one living in the home, there's other people. If it takes longer, that's okay, but do it with the other person. Because if you're doing one thing and the other person's doing their thing, you know where that's going to end up. The other person doesn't follow the healthy person. The healthy person seems to, I don't know why it always goes like that, but, you know, bring the other person along for a ride, even if it takes longer, because you both will end up in a better place. And I think someone who ought to take the veggie meats probably.
But AJ, I know you're trying to move on, but I think we did arrive at a good point where we say that the theme of this conference is actually what's something we need to add to it as well. Yeah. Yes, by yourself you have it's a lot of problems and it's hard. But if we can create a community of accountability, support, whether we would just start reporting how many steps we have taken a week, or set goals for ourselves, but then create a communal space where we can do reporting and encouraging each other, I think we'll be in much better place, because now I'm no longer fighting by myself, but I have camaraderie and support and cheering section.
And Pastor, what actually also helps is that the fact that sometimes it's not only just looking at the positive aspect, but also people learning to share their struggles, even on their journey, is encouraging, so that you're not like, oh, I'm not alone in this struggle. Yes, apparently other people have the same challenges when they started, and they can give strategies and that is why this whole aspect of connection helps, because most times we all we thrive together when we work together. So yes, sometimes there are strategies that we can actually bring on board, even in all these eating habits. Maybe even if, like we even talk about some of these vegetables and everything, maybe you have another way of preparing it, and that makes it even taste better without changing anything. And I get to know that recipe. I'm like, oh, I initially didn't like broccoli, but when it was prepared this way, I ended up enjoying it. So that is why getting to do that community, having these fitness clubs and all those things that we've been talking about, just helps us, so that in terms of our eating and everything, we can share our mutual woes and then share our mutual benefits too as well.
Because if we go alone, we can go fast.
Yeah.
And I've heard convenience and some of these elements, and yes, the changes in lifestyle to go slower. Yeah. Some of these meals with some of these ingredients take a little longer, but maybe not having it doing it by yourself. Yeah. Involve the kids. It's going to be a mess, but then you make them clean up. That's a little trick for family counseling, right? Get them involved. Eat slower, right? Not just get it ready, chop it up while you're checking emails and then go to the next thing, right? Something happens with absorption and digestion when we're going at this quick pace. So just a lifestyle awareness of slowing down for connecting, right? We become disconnected also from our food. We don't know where it's coming from. We're disconnected from the people who we eat, right? So all of these themes of connecting to our food sources, connecting in the way we prepare the food, and connecting in the way we eat it as well.
And that is just a quick one, and that is something very important that I came to mind. In fact, there's an actual research on that about the Italians and how it's like, even just a meal takes like 4 hours for them to have like dinner. And in doing that, you see them like a whole family with cousins and everything sitting on the, yes, they eat even a lot, but by the time they're done with the meal and talk and do all of that, and then they go for a walk while still talking, within 4 hours dinner, just imagine what I was going. So that connection, that slow pace eating is also another important thing that we do. And most times it happens because we are just by ourselves and we want to hurry up, because like you said, if I'm eating and this person is engaging me, it's going to slow me down. But that is why the other aspect of connections, and gradually our society is moving whereby most of us, we have big dining tables that we never sit on. Okay? And we are seeing that every single time. We are buying them and they are gathering dust, we dress them up, and then it's always there. But that is why even just to have this community where we can sit, slowly eat, and engage while even doing that and talking about real life issues is a life transforming part of this whole concept.
You guys really like this question, I see. Okay, go right ahead, all right.
I have to share an anecdote. I was listening to a YouTube, it was probably 3 or 4 years ago now, and it was on a health topic. And you know how YouTube goes from one talk to another? Yeah. You turn around and some lady's going to come on and talk about the Mediterranean diet again. Here we go, more olive oil. Okay, well, I guess I'll listen to it. She wrote her 5th book on the Mediterranean diet for the NIH. I said, okay. But obviously I'm being sad because I actually learned a lesson. She said, what we're learning now, it's not about the food so much. It's about what happens before the meal. We all get together. We plan the meal. It's a social interaction. And that's where some of the these soft, fuzzy things that you think are actually life-saving, the social interaction. Mortality rates are less. It's hard to measure them, but they're very real. People that live alone or loneliness is lethal, right, to be too dramatic. So there's a definite health benefit in the social interaction, and the topic was very well picked for this year. Thank you.
Okay, so 2 questions kind of in one here. It says, does an anti-inflammatory diet help everyone lose weight? And then there's a different question that says, how does fasting play with losing weight?
Anti-inflammatory diet.
It says, does an anti-inflammatory diet help everyone lose weight? That's the question.
Yes.
That's word for word.
So the short answer is yes, because, the anti-inflammatory diet is going to be basically switching your microbiome so that you don't have a leaky gut and absorb toxins and the TMAO and everything that we talked about. So these tend to be a lower calorie diet. You can have a diet with higher beans and lentils and greens and all those things we just talked about. Your meat diets are going to be high fat. More calories actually come out of fat. Mostly animal fats we're talking about, but even good fats are same 110, it's 4 calories per grams for carbohydrates, it's 9 calories per gram for fats. It's more than double the calorie concentration. So that includes good fats. So try not to use oils because it's fat. If you use olive oil, use it sparingly. But you can have some avocados, a handful of mixed nuts is fine. But just be mindful of the fact that even good fats are calorie concentrated. Okay? Sugars we all know, but fats can sort of sneak under the radar. Animal fats are in egg yolks, all meats, fish, shrimp, which we don't, most of us, but is a high cholesterol item, and dairy products is a whole universe by itself. Cheese is loaded with fat and is kind of addicting. literally. So you're much better off with plant sources of dairy where you're willing to make changes, and there's enough choices now. So an anti-inflammatory diet is a concentrated whole food plant-based diet. It's going to be lower calorie. And intermittent fasting, where you stop eating after 5 o'clock or so, is going to basically take away a whole meal of calories away. And if you have a big lunch, you're not going to miss the dinner. I was at Wildwood at a lifestyle center, and that's what we did. And you didn't miss the dinner. If you had a nice lunch, you didn't miss the dinner. And now you're fasting from like 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock till the next morning. That's enough time to turn around a negative energy balance.
Okay, I'm going to switch a little bit now. There's a few questions about health groups. So I'm just going to kind of summarize one of them right now. It says, in order for me to start a health group, do I have to be an expert in that area?
I would take this one, and I think these are good questions that I also want to talk to Dr. Rosenfeld, and he can type it. But you don't have to be. You don't have to be an expert in this area. You have to be someone who is interested in the topic. You have to be someone that, have to have, I would say, connection to good resource. And, a lot of times that is how these groups have been formed. You were interested in something, you sought out resource or a resource person, but you formed it in your community, had the right resource to share. It is important that even though you are not a resource, you may not be the expert, you have good resource, because we also have situations where groups have formed, and the information that they are sharing is actually not good. That is not good. They have the social connection, they are enjoying their time, but they are sharing information that unfortunately is actually may be harmful. But you don't have to be an expert, but in this age, there's good resource everywhere, and so, yeah.
Doc, if you don't mind, I would like to add, whether you are an expert or not, I find often people do weary off is when they try to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
There's plenty of resources and group and established examples and patterns where something is working. Finding and adapting it to an environment is the best. But when people try to say, oh, I want something different, that's when they really, really go off the rails and find themselves.
And I would say an example is, today we saw what Dr. Jason Rosenfeld, his model, his proven model. And so let's say we want to be healthier here. That is our mission, but could what he's doing be a vehicle to get that mission across? So sometimes you see something new, it can enhance what you have. And so a lot of times just working together, you can get this, but you don't have to be the expert. You don't have to feel that inadequate to start, sometimes that's where the problem lies. You feel you are inadequate to start this. You don't have the right BMI. How am I going to do an obesity group? Well, it's important to you. That's why you want to start it. And you want to go along the journey with people who have a healthy intention like yourself to do this, and that is why you have the group. And you may just, need some resource and, yep.
Mr. Estrada, can you give an example of how you have walked someone from trauma to connectedness or belonging?
In
A brief amount of time. Yes.
That resiliency, connection, belonging loop is the model, right? And so it can take a long time to understand what are the triggers that are creating that sense of danger for the person, right? I like to, share the example of spiders, right? In my household, between the four of us, there's some family members who are very scared of spiders, and others, we just look at it, some just look at it and step on it, right, without having to yell. And so that understanding of what is causing that response can be take some time, right? So most likely there are some present stressors, and that's why they come to therapy. And we analyze it as like, well, it's not really a threat. That gives us an indication that's most likely past trauma that exists, and the present stressors are making that connection neurologically, right? So we need to establish and regulate the central nervous system before we can teach new coping skills, right? We're connected to a school system here. We know that a brain in survival response is not going to learn. And so getting that patient to experience a sense of safety, first, introducing the appropriate coping skills then allows them to face the current stressors, add more safety, and that finally opens up the therapeutic space to then go back at the source where that trauma is activating things in the moment. Personally, there's different models that I utilize that people can get trained on, which is EMDR, brain spotting, or neuroorthopedic model that I get to collaborate with physical therapists in my practice, because sometimes we could just get the body to relax by doing some nice stretches. Like I was sharing during lunch that we might see a client come in at 8 o'clock all activated, right? It's like, oh, don't know what happened, but they're going through a difficult time. Look at the schedule, talk to my colleague, hey, let's have them do physical therapy first. I'll do my counseling afterwards. They move, they relax, and that gets the central nervous system in a much calmer state so that the therapeutic work can be effective. But we gotta provide a sense of safety. If somebody's in that threat response, we can have these amazing models, CBT, DBT, ACT, all the alphabet if we want, and it's not going to be effective because the patient is in a trauma response, survival, cannot learn the healthy coping skills. So safety and belonging provide safety.
There's been a lot of talk about isolation, and there was a question that was saying, and I lost it because people keep adding questions as I go because I'm on the live document, and we're not going to be able to answer all these now. We were at 27 when I started. We're at 37 right now, so trying to, yes. So I guess kind of going along maybe in those lines, how do pets play into isolation? Like, can pets decrease this performance?
Yeah, surprisingly in a great way, right? Oxytocin levels also get released when people are connected to their pets, right? So that sense of interaction, because they're also mammals. I'm not sure if it happens. I know some people like to have like spiders and rats as their pets. I'm not sure there's research for that, but with mammals, yes, we get that same level of response if you feel safe with them. If you've been bitten by a dog, come to therapy, we'll get through that, then enjoy the company of the dog.
And I'll just add, I mean, there's real research behind emotional support animals. There's real support for people that are experiencing widowhood, people that are experiencing, someone a loss, and in all kind, even trauma and other places, there is real resource that shows that it can be very helpful, especially when you're living alone. So, yeah.
This is not an excuse for you not to go out and meet people. You can't stay home with your dog or your cat, okay? Be like, well, they said...
Go to the dog park.
There you
And go dog walking.
Or go dog walking. There you go. That's good. All right.
For the owners.
Is it true that most research in the general health space is based on studies mostly done on males? The female experience is unique. What female-focused insights can you share?
So, I mean, this is an interesting for me. My background is epidemiology, so I had to study this. So there is definitely evolution in how research was done. And this part, I probably will call on you to see. There's evolution in how research has been done over time. Yes, 100 years ago, research was really white male. And some research had a few female participation. But in the 1960s, sorry? Because mostly jails? I don't know. And then in the 1960s, when other populations were started, being introduced in research. Unfortunately, because of the political, the nature of us, people were actually abused. One example is what is the syphilis case? Is it Tuskegee syphilis, and so it created the mistrust in the African American community because people who were supposed to be getting treatment, they were intentionally withheld medication from them, and their disease got worse. And so, up to this point, we are still struggling to get people who could get benefit from research medication not getting it. But over time, there's real effort that is being put in to make sure that research demographics, because any research that you see, there's a table 1, it's demographics. We are really trying hard to make the demographic as representative as possible. And currently, a lot of research has mostly equal male to female representation. Where it still struggles, it's demographic when it comes to ethnicity. A lot of research still struggle with that. And the problem that what it becomes is what we call extrapolation. Extrapolation, because when you do research, you are using a sample. And when you use that sample and you generate a result, and you have something like, what we call effect size, like this is great, but will it work here? How do we know that it will work here? Because you had a certain number of people from this group in the research, and if we look at it, it worked for them. And so if we don't have representation in that group, how do we know? Because there is subtle genetic differences in certain groups that affects the way medication and different therapies work. And so there is real effort. It is not perfect, but we are still working on it.
At least in the lifestyle medicine field, I think efforts are extremely powerful now to be aware of health equity. The Food is Medicine program movement has taken off like wildfire, and people are painfully in the medical field aware that there are communities that are unfairly affected by where they live and so forth, and people's health should not be affected by their zip code, by where they live and what resources are around. And there's a real effort. I have to say I don't say proud of but AMA, everyone's really trying to step up now and really try to catch up with where the people are.
If I have a job that makes me walk 10,000 steps daily, can I count that as my physical activity, or is it not as effective because it's my daily routine?
I think myself and Nisim are laughing because it was a topic for discussion days when we were having lunch, and I always tell people one basic thing: work is not workout. I want to repeat that. Work is not workout. There's a mental and biological processes. This morning I mentioned that the aspect of physical activity have two components: the biological and then the social intervention part of it when it comes to physical activity. But when it comes to the biological part, where this particular question is talking about, what happens is that anytime you decide that, like Dr. Prince mentioned that he uses gardening as his what? His exercise. There's a different secretion of biological hormones and other things during that process. At that same time, if somebody is doing landscaping, which is also like gardening, at that same time, in fact, the research will tell you that the same person, if they did 4 hours of gardening and somebody did 4 hours of landscaping, they realized that the effect on the muscles and other things were different. One was seen as a stressor, one was seen as an exercise to benefit the body. So whilst one was putting things in, I think he knows more about those mental health aspects, the serotonin, the oxytocin, and all those things that is coming into the system, one is taking out. So one is draining, one is putting in. So a lot of times that is the concept that sometimes is difficult for people to wrap their head around. That exercise and work are two different things. That work is not a workout. So yes, you get some level of physical activity that will go into your credit just by walking a lot in your, maybe for it comes to, especially when it comes to like calorie burn. Yes, you're going to burn a lot of calories because you are actively moving. So if you had maybe a bowl of tacos in the afternoon during lunchtime, and by the end of the day, you've actually used that in terms of the calories. But in terms of other beneficial part of the exercise that you need to get, you are probably not going to get that because you are not seeing that work as a workout.
Absolutely. Is it better than my job, which is sitting most of the time? In certain components, it definitely is. But Dr. Nisim was mentioning also in this example, there's that key mental framing and state of mind that the limbic system, which helps a lot with how our emotions play a role with it, he used a key word there, enjoyment. Objectively, we can say they were doing the same type of physical activity, but the recovery and restorative process does not get activated in the same way. So that's a crucial component, right? And we're not all the same, right? What allows us to recover, what allows us to have that physical fitness workout may not be the same, right? I don't necessarily enjoy walking. You put a soccer ball in front of me, I'll run. Right? I enjoy, and so my recovery, my rest is a lot different when I play soccer than when I just walk. And so that's a key component of the mental aspect. It's different, although, and it's key. We're all different in that sense of what's going to be the most beneficial.
So to summarize, for the person that's doing 10,000 steps, you're better off than having a sedentary job.
Yep.
Sedentary
Definitely.
lifestyle is the new smoking. So if you can get up and do 10,000, go for it. But I think what's being said here is that getting out and getting outdoors, getting morning sunlight, fresh air, doing a focused exercise thing is probably a notch better.
Maybe you work in the park as a park ranger and you enjoy it because you get to see the birds. So there's more context to it, right? So some of us are fortunate that we get to enjoy what we do, and when we do that, again, that keyword enjoyment, our work is perceived as less stressful, less of a threat, less adrenaline, less cortisol. We are not in that survival state because we don't perceive it as a threat. So
I would just add one word. It's called recreation. Recreation, and you are not getting that with even though you are physically active. It's not recreation.
On the topic of belonging, how do you reestablish balance after the loop has been broken? For example, when trust is broken in a community or family, etc.
Building up the safety mechanisms around your boundaries to mitigate the chances that there's going to be more pain cost. At the same time, we cannot assume that it won't happen again. The response that sometimes we see when trust is broken is a lot of control. And this leads to anxiety. I have to make sure everything is the right way so I don't get hurt again. Eventually, it does require a leap of faith and vulnerability. That's what I was mentioning. It's also something you give. So you have to recover enough to be in a position where you can risk being hurt again. But that's how it gets restored, right? We need to be vulnerable and willing to engage again, maybe with that person who was covered by tattoos, like Pastor Arnovali said, right? There was a vulnerability and openness there. So we have to assess the level of hurt that we experience, recover from it, build the tools to keep us safe, but be vulnerable and be willing to take that step, and that loop has the opportunity to be reestablished.
I would add, or maybe even ask you, or maybe I'm thinking that it also depends on the relationship. You know, if it's me and my child versus if it's that person outside. Because not, not all relationships need to be, there's forgiveness, but sometimes there is going to be that boundary. So do you think it also depends on the nature of the relationship as well?
Absolutely. Not to get too much in theology, there's forgiveness, there's reconciliation, right? Atonement, forgiveness, reconciliation. Sometimes we use it interchangeably. They do not mean the same thing. And it is that component of how meaningful the relationship is.
Yeah.
And this is where I also talk about recovery. Sometimes people go back and try to reestablish loops because they feel they need that relationship, right? And so it's important to assess those boundaries and kind of have that balance. We've heard of codependency. We've also been talking and kind of talk like fully independence, also not healthy. We see that interdependence tends to be the healthiest balance. So assessing the relationships that fall kind of like in that level of connection, right? We kind of assess the bigger circles they are. Maybe it's a boundary there to make sure that we are safe. If it's within that circle, then what are the avenues to restore relationships that are much closer, much meaningful to us?
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, thank you for describing the mechanism. I would add this also, give yourself time.
Yeah.
Like a physical wound, it's healing, but it takes time to heal. Emotional wounds, relational wounds need time to be healed as well. Yes, determine relationship, because it's easier for me to forgive a little baby, but I assess that relationship, and that's why I'm not as hurt as the words. But with somebody grown up, I assess it, and I know it takes time, and I give it that time. So just because I feel still afraid or upset, it doesn't mean that I'm not on a process, on a journey. So sometimes we expect more of ourselves than we need to. So giving that time, but being intentional, prayerful, and you'll find that healing.
I will just take a pause real fast. Our conference was supposed to be over at 3:50. Are you guys still with us right now, or you want us to ask a few more questions, or would you like just to wrap it up? We can send the questions out, and we can answer them on our Facebook page. How are we doing right now? Thumbs up, we want to keep going, or just keep them down if you're ready to end? I see most people are ready to end right now. Looks like.
Now there are a lot of votes.
So the two of you stay here, everybody.
All right, we good? Are you sure you're okay? We need to take a break real fast, or you're good? Okay, here we go. All right, so I'm going to try to combine these couple of questions. I'll read them both at the same time, but you'll kind of see they're kind of similar. It says, if as someone ages, you may not be able to absorb vitamins for maximum health, do you suggest any supplements to assist for a balanced diet? For example, omega-3. The next question kind of goes along, is it good to take probiotics or pre-probiotic pills? So this question is about vitamins, pills, things like that.
So the two vitamins of concern, when I say of concern in the medical community, are vitamin D and B12. Those are the ones that, and it's not the individual's fault necessarily. The B12 is produced in the ground near the roots of the plants, and we've what's the right word? Overfarmed, there's another word, but depleted the soil, basically. And there's a lot of work now with soil regeneration and so forth. So you may not be getting the B12. There's autoimmune reasons why you may not be absorbing B12. There's medications that excrete B12 as a side effect. So that's one that's not uncommon that needs to be supplemented. And the most reliable absorption is sublingually under the tongue. So either 1,000 micrograms, depending on what the level is, maybe up to 5,000 micrograms. Vitamin D is a hormone actually, it's not a vitamin. And it has a myriad of effects, including immunological, neurological. It's not just for calcium and bones. So vitamin D is stimulated by sunlight, but not any sunlight. Ultraviolet B is more prominent from about 11 o'clock to about 3 o'clock. So when the sun is like just coming up to about midday till about 3 o'clock, that's your ultraviolet. So you need some of that. You need to be smart about it. You don't have to come out for like 2 hours, but I tell people 20 minutes, you should get that spectrum of sunlight. Morning sunlight, just to complete the spectrum a little bit, is near infrared, which is actually very helpful for you. you see these people with masks on now and so forth, with the red light on it. They heard that red light is good for you, so now they're going to, buy rugs of it and wrap themselves in it for the, no one told them. So again, I tell people, especially the near-infrared penetrates the skull, and actually they're doing work with it with neurodegenerative diseases like Parkinson's and dementia. So if I have people at risk for that, I tell them go out, 8, 9 o'clock when the sun is lower in the sky, or at the end of the day, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. That's when that spectrum gets through better, and that's actually health for you. 2 different spectrums. And there's a lot of exciting work with near-infrared. So those 2 vitamins, omega-3s, avocados have it, walnuts have omega fatty acids, flaxseed, chia seeds. We're actually using those tomorrow morning in our cooking demonstration to make a parfait. If you want to get the DHA is the omega-3 that's most plentiful in the brain. A normal individual should convert that on their own from what you take in. There are some plant-based, like seaweeds and some of those from the ocean, the algae and that kind of stuff that you actually can get more. That's where the fish get it from. So that would be a good source if you're concerned. You can actually measure that. I'm starting to do that in the lab, tests omega-3 index. You can actually measure where someone's at on that. So DHA is actually the one that the brain, if you have brain, neuropsychiatric concerns, that would be the one you want to get more plentifully of.
Probiotics?
The one thing I would ask, and I'll let you add, is that, I get asked this question a lot by patients, and yes, this is good. However, it is not a replacement for fresh fruits and vegetables, because a lot of the vitamins are already in there as well. So that's an important thing. It's called a supplement for a reason, because some people would need supplementation, but it is not a replacement. And I'll let you take the last one there.
The probiotics question, are they good, bad?
From my readings and my interpretation of it, probiotics, the studies have not been helpful, like for long-term use. If someone's been on a lot of antibiotics or post-hospital, I'll recommend a short course. When I say short, 2 to 4 weeks of probiotics. Prebiotics is a different animal, and you can get that from nutrition-wise from like sauerkraut, right? Pickles, something, things like kimchi, I think, right? So prebiotics is a good thing, but increasing. Remember, you want a healthy. The end game is a healthy microbiome. That's what you want, right? Increasing the fiber will go a long way to that. So whatever you eat, think about fiber. If you buy crackers, they shouldn't be like simple saltine white flour crackers. They should be a whole grain cracker, rye cracker. Look at that. If you have a snack, you put hummus on that. Hummus is made from garbanzo beans. As Pastor said, beans are an excellent source of fiber. Put them on a rye cracker, and you probably have 4 grams of fiber right there, just from a snack. So that's where I'd put my focus, because you'll get a healthy microbiome, and that's really, you're halfway home with that.
There's a question actually that goes right into that about the fiber. Someone says, what if they have a hard time digesting the fiber, it makes their stomach hurt? Are there any alternatives?
You sure it's not because that complaint comes up a lot with the beans and lentils. If you soak the beans overnight and drain them, there are things you can do. But usually the fiber, go easy on it if you're not having any, if you're having a typical American diet and most Americans get probably 5 to 8, 9 grams if they're lucky of fiber a day. Woman needs probably 30 to 40 grams a day, a man 40 to 50 grams a day. So we need to ramp that up. But yes, do it over a month, 4 to 6 weeks, little by little. Don't try to do it all at once.
This is a personal experience. I had a period of transition from whatever I was eating to like purely, and I had a really hard time, and I was having like abdominal upset, and actually did not realize that was what was happening. My bowel like behavior had changed. And then it was like after talking to someone and I realized that, it was just a really quick transition And so my body, my gut, my microbiome was switching. It was not ready to process the type of food, because before what I had was different. So like I said, gradually doing that. But that was a personal experience. It was actually very painful when you have that bloating and all that stuff. Yeah.
There's a free program by Ardmore Institute. I have some sign-up pads. I was wondering why I brought them, but now I know why. They run a free program. I don't believe in accidents. So they run a free program where they help you incorporate little by little, increasing the fiber. And they incorporate some meat into that. It's sort of a transition. It's a nice, easy, free program. And they're very supportive of lifestyle medicine, everything that they do. So I'd recommend that. I have some tear-off thing at the table outside if you'd like afterwards.
AJ, I also wanted to add a little bit of dovetail to what Doc was saying about not letting go of fresh fruits and vegetables. Here's the reality: a supplement industry is not regulated. So most of the time you don't even know what you're getting. You think it's vitamins and your faith is strong, but eat the natural stuff and you will know that you're getting for sure.
Dr. Ben, I want to exercise more, but my joints and feet hurt. I can't keep up with the others. It makes me depressed. What can I do?
If you can repeat it, you say you want to exercise, but what?
Their joints and their feet hurt. Can't keep up, so it's then in turn making them depressed. What do you suggest that they could do to help?
There are a lot of things. I think one of them that is just to find out what are the comorbidities that a person had. I think one of them was the fact that Dr. Ralph mentioned it, that what are the times that you are even exercising. Some people have already acute inflammatory issues like the rheumatoid arthritis and all the arthritis changes. And most times in the mornings and other things, they hurt a lot because the body goes into all this stiffness and other things, and it takes some level of movement before they ease into it. So sometimes you need to integrate it further to find out what times are they actually doing the exercise. The other thing we also need to look at is how much goes into it. A lot of times I always mention that we just mentioned issues about graded exposure. Sometimes people just need to ease into that. If you go too much, and that is the reason why at the beginning of the year, for instance, you have a lot of people sign up for various workout programs, and then 2 weeks down the line, they drop out, they crash. Because now the exercise becomes trauma. And because it's trauma, now it becomes a stressor. So the enjoyment part that we were talking about is taken out. So now the body is seeing that as stress, as a stressor or as a threat, let me put it that way. So it's pushing back on that. So one of the things that I always ask people is that just to know the graded exposure, gradually weaning themselves into that. You need to interrogate those things first. And then the other thing too is that sometimes, apart from the exercise, and what also goes into their day. Because sometimes the level of physical activity that they also do into the day also accumulate on top of what they've already done. So if the knee and then the joint already have some, like they are they are more triggered by various inflammation and other things, and then they are not taking decisive time to actually cool off, that can also happen. The other thing, the third one I'll mention, is that the body also, and last year we talked quite a little bit about that, about recovery. Okay, most times for some people when you get to certain ages, and that's why we talk about the variety of the physical activity, you need to vary it. Don't just go doing things that are pro-tendon specific repeatedly. Because, for instance, if you do, let's say I'm doing heel raises and other things, that actually stretches the tendon. It takes at least 48 to 72 hours for the tendon to fully recover. So if you go do like jump ropes, and then you've not done jump ropes for a long time, and all of a sudden, and last year I demonstrated it that you weigh, for instance, like 150 pounds. Anytime you jump and land, that is 150-pound weight that your tendons and your bone have to kind of like get like a shock absorber to absorb whilst you land nicely, and then you leap again and you jump. So if you do 10 times that, multiply that by the 150-pound weight,
200.
That's, yes, that is how much poundage or force you are putting on those knees. The question is, if you've not done that in a long time, can your body or the joint take maybe 1,500 pounds of weight within a short period of time? So at the end of the day, you start getting the inflammation. You are all sore because you did too much too soon after you've done too little for too long. And I want to repeat, you did too much too soon after you've done too little for too long. So for the recovery, what I also tell people, recommend that if they have such a problem, they should vary their workout. Today, do stretches. Tomorrow, do a little bit cardio. The cardio can take so many forms. I even demonstrated that they are doing a simple sit to stand by timing yourself. Last year we did that, right? Where you time yourself, 15 sits to stand in 30 seconds. It's not, that is another way of actually getting your cardiorespiratory endurance workout without putting so much stress on your joints. So that variability actually helps to go around some of these challenges.
Okay, go ahead, sorry.
If you can just to piggyback on that, if you could find that individual a warm water pool, I think it'd be non-weight bearing.
Yes.
And the heat, I think, will be very therapeutic on the joints.
On the joints.
Near us, we have the ASYMCA or YMCA, and they have a heated pool. So if you can find that resource.
And just to clarify something a little further here, what Dr. Ben was just saying, it's a physical activity, right? And a lot of times we assume that has to be high impact cardiovascular activity. Dr. Nisim was mentioning stretching. That's gentle, restorative physical activity,
Yep.
right? We work with patients in chronic pain that it is excruciating for them to move, but we know that movement is still part of what that treatment is, and we just go with gentle stretching and they get a lot of benefit. So kind of maybe exploring what somebody means by physical activity at times is this perception that it needs to be at that high impact cardiovascular, which it has its benefits for some things, but it could also be the gentle, slower type of stretching activities.
And AJ, quickly, just let me touch on that. And I see that, especially for us, the men, we are the most guilty of that. And I've seen, I've seen a lot of men who go to the gym, they work out, and they're like, why am I tight? Why am I having this back pain? Because the assumption is that whilst I'm actually working out and doing, I shouldn't have any of these problems. So that's how they get deflated and go through they get depressed by, oh, I'm working out, why am I getting tired? It's because of the lack of variability. I talked about the fifth principle. The last part was the frequency, intensity, the time, and then the type of exercises you're doing. And for the exercises, we have flexibility exercises, one of them. But most men think that flexibility exercise is for women. And most women also think that strength training is for men. So we need to balance that. You need all of that. If some people just, like we mentioned, yes, as far as you want to do something you enjoy, you need to actually work on all the system. You need to vary your workout and other things to work on the various systems. You need, the average American, only 6.8% of our population does anything strength training. And that's why we get the injury and all of the problem, because if we come to church and we see pastor lifting chairs and I want to help out and I go lift up the chair and I have not trained my back muscles and I lift this and it's 10 pounds and my lower back muscles have not actually have the tolerance of lifting 10 pounds, I leave here, go back home and my back hurts because your activity exceeds your tolerance. And anytime your activity exceeds your tolerance, pain or injury happens. So most time people need to have that at the back of their mind, that the variability. So especially, let me emphasize that again, the men, let's do a lot of this stretching. It doesn't make you a woman just to stretch those muscles, because you need the spindles to also relax and release all the feel-good hormones into the system. It's one reason why people will go to get massages and when they go to the chiros and they do the manipulation. In fact, in Loma Linda, one of the studies that when I was there we did was that when people go through that, in fact, they took the blood sample of individuals when they did some of these, the stretching, the massages, the manipulations, and then immediately they realize that within 30 minutes, all the feel-good hormones, the endorphin, the serotonins, were high concentration in the blood. And that's why, after you go to see the chiro or done all of within the first 30 minutes, you are fine. Then later on, if you don't do the exercise to maintain that, then you go back to those things and you keep on going back. So those are the things that we need to actually incorporate to have that level of variability in there.
Okay, we're going to go with 2 more questions and call it a day. I can't find the question now, but basically the summary is what do you do with someone who says they are okay with being alone? They're tried putting themselves out there and they're just kind of done with everything and they're just, listen, I'm okay, I'm fine just being alone.
Yeah, so it's kind of exploring if it's alone and loneliness. I was mentioning a lot of people who are alone and feel connected and that they belong. And if it's not that sense of belonging or connection, give them space because they probably have been hurt. Right? And so before moving into any component of recovery and reconnection, we gotta let those emotional wounds heal, right? And so a lot of times those defense mechanisms, those boundaries come up and like, I've trusted 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times and I've been emotionally hurt, so I'm just gonna keep my boundaries up, right? And so that is part of the recovery process, right? Keeping that safety. And so as that emotional injury recovers, I'm not going to say all of the time, but most of the time, sometimes it's taking 6 months and the patient by themselves comes and tells me, I think I'm going to talk to, my neighbor. I think I'm going to talk to my family member. I might go back to church or something like that, right? So it's completely okay if they're more introverted. Again, introversion is not a psychological disorder. We live in a society that is extremely biased for extroverts. An introvert can be alone and feel connected. Give them the space. If they are connected and if they're okay, they might need just a little bit of social interaction once a week. That might be all they need, and they get that tank of all the neurotransmitters gets refueled super quickly. It's like those Teslas at 15 minutes, and they're good. Others, you got to leave them for 4 hours before they recharge, so others may need more social connections. But if they are lonely and they've been hurt, we got to let those boundaries stay there to protect them. Eventually, with time allows that process of reconnection to occur.
There's another dynamic of it. So first of all, absolutely, knowing particularly if a person has been going through some trauma or so. But we also live in time where people don't understand that mere social connectedness is not enough. Let me name you 2 books that are popular known. First of all, Purpose-Driven Life, and second one is Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. Right? People enjoy relationships when it's more than just you and I hang out together, when there's something deeper. And perhaps for a person who have gone through some sort of a trauma, instead of forcing them into friendships, helping them to discover a purpose, a deeper meaning, and you'll find that it is in pursuit of that they will start establishing connections.
And sometimes it just even changing maybe the connection type is so much important, because sometimes it is probably they've been looking for connection in a particular sphere and in a particular area and they keep on getting hurt. What about if they change the environment, you move them from that environment and find connections elsewhere? And we've shown so many types of connections that we can actually have in this sphere like we've been here. Maybe, yes, the family, they find family connections, they keep on getting hurt. What about coming to church? You can also find connections there. What about involving a fitness group? They can also find connections there. What about finding maybe a sorority group or whatever it is? They can also find connections in it. So sometimes we need to expand that view and not get caught up in just one place, because sometimes they want to go to that area and that area keep on giving them all that, and the body is trying to push back on that.
I have a question for you, and and I really think, and this is something that I'm dealing with a person. So when somebody you care about says, I need space, and you know them, and you know they are hurt, how do you continue loving them, and in that phase?
So all of those
At least showing them that they are still connected.
absolutely right.
Yeah.
And a lot of those is clarifying how that person feels like they belong or like they're connected, right? Sometimes it's just like you just check on me, but you don't expect an answer from me. And if we're okay, then you can keep sending that person a text message. Hey, thinking of you, praying of you, I'm here. Letting them know that your distance has kept the door open. Because at times when people get distant, in a lot of cases of trauma, that's abandonment. And it's just a confirmation that they're alone. And so that component is just, I need my space to be here, but know that people are there, a phone call, a call away. Others may require, hey, come here, but don't talk. Just be physically present. And so it's more about the emotional space. They don't want to talk about it, but let's go walk. Let's not talk about the issue. I need my emotional space. So either quiet or we have to talk about something else. So it's a little bit more of trying to understand what that person needs from space and respecting it and just letting them know, asking them, hey, I care for you. How do I check in within you feeling I'm violating your boundaries, right? And if that's mutual interest in the relationship, even though they might want to be left alone, they know that you care for them. And it's like, okay, once a week or do it this way. And so now there's an agreement where communication can be established without feeling like the boundary is being violated. So a little bit of negotiation and clarification goes a long way.
Last question for today. We'll end with a bang. What exercises can we do to take care of belly fat?
Well, this is from at least cardiology, and it's, everybody will chime in. As far as I know, there isn't an exercise to take care of belly fat. There is exercise, there is nutrition, actually number one, nutrition, to reduce, cause a deficit, a calorie deficit. And as we have calorie deficit, then we will see our face, especially our face start changing because we are losing face in, because that's usually the first areas that we loses fat from. We will start losing fat from like our extremities. And unfortunately, one of the last areas that we lose fat is visceral fat, which is fat around the belly area. And so really, but the most important thing is going to be that. And then second, it's, our exercise, varying cardio and strength. Strength ethnicity even more, and I would like to talk about that, more important in sustaining that calorie, deficit as well. But it really starts from, calorie deficit, yeah.
I think you already mentioned it because I was like, definitely that's where you start from. I think last year too I mentioned that you can never work out a bad diet. Okay, and I want to repeat, you can never work out a bad diet. If you take a food that have 1,000 calories in a day, and you eat, and in long time we're giving that example that if you eat that 1,000 calories, and it's simple demand and supply, and you are burning just, let's say, 500 of it, or let's even go, you burn 800, you save what? 200, right? That is for breakfast. And I don't know, well, I stand to be corrected, I don't know who actually brought this whole idea that we need to eat 3 times a day. I'm still trying to find out the research on that. But lunchtime, you eat another 1,000, you burn, let's say 800, you save another what? 200. So how many do you have? 400. You eat dinner, 1,000, you are working less during that time. So you burn half of it, you have 500 saved, plus another 400, you have 900 calories. Multiply that by what? 7 days. Multiply that in a month. So you see how gradually you start to accumulate all that. And then eventually, You are now storing that visceral area. It becomes the most convenient, like Dr. Prince mentioned. It's the interesting thing is that it's the first place to store, but the last place to decrease. And unfortunately, it's also one of the places that is more visible. Once you start showing it, everybody starts seeing it. So most times, so to go around it is that is demand and supply. You need to cut down on what? The calories. Don't go starve yourself, because that's the other thing. And last year we talked about that. People will starve themselves, and by the time the body will push back, and then they will eat, boom. A lot. Doc is here. Last year we mentioned that. And then you eat a lot to just counter all the gains you've made. So the first thing is the diet. Make sure you're cutting down on the high processed food. We even mentioned that, yeah, carbs, sometimes people even have it in the back of their mind, carbohydrate is bad. No. Our cells is made up of carbs. But we have good carbs and we have what? Bad carbs. We established that already. So that is the first thing. The other thing is strength training. Most time people run, I tell people, but one of the running is not actually good for burning fat. The reason is this. Our energy supply, we have two main ways. We have the glycolysis phase, and then we have the mitochondria that we also use. So most times, that is why issues like simple walking and other things are so, because it actually uses your mitochondria, helps with metabolism, so you're able to metabolize these things faster. When you want a fast pace like you're running, you go through glycolysis where you're using glucose. So that's why you build up lactic acid, and so you go through that fast. So whenever your body needs fast energy, you go to glycolysis. But whenever you need actual energy, the more efficient way is to go through the mitochondria and go through that process. So most times when we do strength training and other things, those slow pace exercise and other things, it helps to make your body efficient. You get what we call more mitochondria being used to help with metabolism. And most of the calorie gain or the weight gain is actually a metabolic problem. So once that metabolism improves using the strength training, and then it also improve your cellular absorption because it makes your cells more sensitive. So now your body is now using all the sugars, the calories and other things that you have in there and using them into energy because the cells are now ready to absorb them and it doesn't stay in your blood or in your system. They are going into the factory instead of staying in the storeroom. I don't know whether I'm making a good picture. So that is what we need to do. So if you want to reduce belly fat, yes, those are some of the ways. And even with the strength training, there are even specific ones that you can target those areas. But mostly, I prefer more holistic ones where you are kind of like doing strength training for a whole body because you just don't need your belly. Because sometimes I get seen people talk about core exercises. Yes, the core muscles are important, but you need a more rounded body so that at least you can actually improve your overall health.
Go ahead.
So I didn't mention about the mitochondria. Thank you for bringing that up. I mentioned about the near-infrared light from the early morning and the late afternoon. The reason it's helpful for you is because it gets into the cell and has a potent antioxidant effect on the mitochondria. You have healthier mitochondria. That's your storehouse of energy. So and what I recently learned also is that at the end of that electron transport chain, it produces, of all things, melatonin. Okay? So early morning and late afternoon sunlight boosts melatonin, which is a very, very potent antioxidant. So you're going to have a healthier storehouses of energy. And it might even help the person who's been having the joint pains that they mentioned. I would consider recommending that, let's say, a good 20 minutes of morning sunlight for the person with the question with the joint pains. The other is because a lot of people are taking these injection now with weight loss, the GLP-1s.
GLP-1s.
They cause fat loss, but they also cause muscle mass loss. So for those individuals, we talk strength training, what we're saying translated into that is resistance exercises. Okay, so you get some bands and so forth to do that. That's very important because you may lose weight, but some of that weight is going to be muscle loss, and you don't want that.
And then even working away in your own body resistance, like calisthenics, is so much important. It's one of the best things, and it's so underrated because sometimes people want to go push external weight when they cannot even push against their own body weight. So sometimes I tell people, you don't need those heavy gym equipment or those heavy weight, even if you can push against your own body weight. And even so much data shows that even doing wall sits, those isometric exercise like planks and all those things have even shown to even reduce your blood pressure. So even getting to do that, not only are you getting that, but even your cardiorespiratory, like your cardiovascular health also improve just by that. So sometimes even pushing it, because you weigh, like let's say you weigh 150 pounds. If you can do a plank for 2 minutes, that's you weighting, that's a resistance training. It's an isometric one, but that is an resistance. You have the whole 150 pounds without spending a dime to buy that. You have that. So if you cannot push against your own body weight, why do you want to go push against 300 pounds that is external?
Okay, so thank you, docs and non-docs, pastors and psychiatrists, psychologists. I don't know the difference. There are a couple of questions that we did not get through, but we're going to forward these to Dr. Prince and the pastor, and perhaps over the next couple of weeks we can just put some things onto the Facebook page that we have, or do some video answers or something like that. These don't have names attached to them, so they're good. One of the questions that we're not going to answer right now, but that were very similar, it talks about many people leaving the church because of church hurt. How can churches serve as places for community and connection? Another question, how can we practically show up for our church community members who may be experiencing isolation and anxiety?
AJ, I think that back to differ. Ask for this question. Pastor need to answer that before you.
No. We totally got to go. We got to go. Pastor still got to drive to Dallas tonight. So with that being said, please if you're not following us on Facebook, please follow us, because we will try to get some of those up over the next few weeks or so, just kind of answering those. But we did get most of them. So we thank you so much for joining us tonight. Go ahead and let's stand as we close in prayer. Pastor, we will let you finish us off unless there's something else.
So I just want to remind you, tomorrow at 8 o'clock, we're doing a 5K walk run. We start at 8, so you come a little bit earlier for stretching. Then at 10:30, we will start with our sessions here. We wanted to announce next year's date, and I don't think we're gonna narrow that down. So we do want to avoid Fiesta a little bit, so probably we'll do it a little bit earlier, but or later. We'll let you know shortly. But thank you for staying by, for joining us. I pray that it's been a blessing to you, and we'll start you on a journey for deeper study, discovery. We can't answer all the questions, but we can begin that path. So let's pray together. Thank you, Father, for another opportunity to turn to you. We thank you for a Sabbath and a chance to spend it together as a church family, as families, in discussing, learning, challenging ourselves, knowing that there is more that you desire for us in our lives. Father, we are fearfully, wonderfully made, and we thank you for giving us insight into knowing how to live better physical, emotional, and spiritual lives. Bless us, guide us, protect us, and bring us back together. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you guys again.
Play ball.